But all right, we'll get into it. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode here at Grizzly Talk. Your host here at Mike on the mic. We got David.
David Alvarez F _
And we got our special guest Fabio.
Yep.
Right here with
Fabio Linares. I'm with BadKidsClub. Yeah, excited to be here.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks for making it in again, bro. It's been fun already. So I know maybe we'll clip some of that stuff up there.
Take three.
Yeah, but yeah, my guy's going with it. But tell us a little bit about what you do with your business, and then even a little bit more about your background too with
So yeah, BadKidsClub is just a vintage resale store. We find vintage clothing just from anywhere, thrift stores, yard sales, auctions, estate sales, trash, whatever it is, if we think it's cool, we'll bring it in and put a price tag on it and really just try to find, like-minded people who do appreciate, this or that. So it could be anything from an old comic book t-shirt, like a band tee, sportswear. And that's the fun part, is just trying to see random people coming in and just looking through all this stuff and then finding like that one thing that speaks to them, that one thing that, oh, my dad had this. Oh, like I always wanted one of these growing up. And like, that's fun. You don't do that at a department store.
Yeah, 100%. And so what I thought was pretty cool is you said it's a collective of you guys that bring all this merch together, basically, right?
Yeah, so it's me and about like 12 other vendors who each have like a little Z-Rack. They come in, they hang their stuff, they tag it. But I also have other people in there who do other stuff. I have a few photographer homies, and they're always kind of around at our events, and we're always doing events with them. I have some homegirls who make clothes, one who makes clothes, one who makes jewelry. I have another one who makes her own stickers. So really we just try to invite anybody who wants to put in their time and effort and talents into the shop. It's there. It's a canvas for really to amplify all of us. And yeah, that's in downtown Fresno. So that's
you said in Mammoth Mall, right?
Yeah, so that's always a big deal that it's in downtown. Because I don't know, downtown's kind of mystical for some people, right? Like if you're from up north, it's like, ooh, it's scary over there. But I don't know, for me, growing up in Southeast Fresno and going, basically from like where Roosevelt High is to Edison, like, and on a skateboard at the time, like it was fun. It was really cool. And so, yeah, that was just a place I felt comfortable in.
Yeah. No, I know downtown Fresno's really growing right now. They're pushing for a lot of things down there, like the brewery district. I know Fulton's like renovating everything. I know they're pushing towards Chinatown too, which is like right next door.
Yeah, Chinatown really needs it. Some people could argue like Fulton didn't need the street, but the attention is good either way. Because it's beautiful down there, and for me, there's a lot of memories. But in the bigger scheme of things, there's a lot of thrift stores. There's a lot of vintage stores down there.
There's a lot of culture down there.
Yeah, like growing up, like going from Edison and ditching school and going to like I would go to Yoshi Now. So that was like the first vintage store that like I walked in and I'm like, this isn't just crap. Like this isn't just somebody just donated this stuff. It was like y'all picked this stuff to be here. And so it was a lot of 60s, 70s, 80s like bicycles and dresses and painting, just stuff that I'd never seen so curated. And so that kind of made an impression on me, 15, 16, and being like, oh shoot, like, hey, y'all are cool with us coming in here. The first time we ever went in there, my friends and I, we went to go drop off our backpacks at the front like good little kids, because
that's what you had to do back then.
Yeah, and they were looking at us like, what? And we're like, yeah, so we don't steal. And the gals were like, okay. And they let us put our backpacks down on the counter, and then we shopped, whatever. We went home, and you know we're about to go. I don't know. Somebody opens their backpack and they fucking scream, and there's a rubber snake in there. They put rubber snakes in our backpacks, just to
Just
be
to
funny.
mess with you guys.
Yeah, and we went back like that day or you know that week, and we're like tripping out. But I mean, like I'm still friends with them.
That's
to this day.
hilarious. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that made such an impression on me. But yeah.
You think that that's kind of what gave you guys the idea, or at least you
Yeah.
the idea to, and how did that all come about? You guys, was it just one person had the idea and like, hey, you should do this with me. You like doing this.
So, I guess like probably like in 2016, 2015, I was just getting it. Like I'd always been into vintage. Like clearly, like in high school, I was into vintage.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really like reselling wasn't a thing. Like eBay existed, so I kind of knew about that. And at some point, something happened where I was just like, oh shit, there's money out there in random shit. And for me, it was a rock and roll chicken clock. So I found this alarm clock that's a chicken, and it's got a guitar and sunglasses. And it's the loudest, most annoying alarm clock ever. I thought it was hilarious. Well, one day, you know, I'm like 20, 21. I'm like trying to move. I went to the Midwest for a little bit. I'm trying to come back, and I looked this thing up on eBay, and it's worth $150. And I'm like, what the hell? Why? And to this day, I don't know why. But I sold it, and I found another one, and I found another one. And after I got through college, I was like, you know what? If I find a fifth one, I'm just gonna get a tattoo of it. Because at this point I've made $500 or $600 off these chickens. So this next one's gonna like pay for the tattoo basically, or at least some of it. So yeah, I ended up getting like a little tattoo.
Oh shit.
Rock and roll chicken. But that was kind of like the start for me. That and like toys, like growing up, you know, Southeast Fresno, Mexican, like, yeah, we were poor. In the 90s, we did not, like, I wanted everything that I saw on the TV.
What was your upbringing like?
I mean, it was just traditional, like, loving Mexican household, but we're poor, you know? I remember one year my mom got me, I don't know if you remember the girls had Polly Pockets, right? The little compacts that you open up and there's a little doll in there. But there was boy versions called Mighty Max. And it'd be like a decaying skull with like rotting flesh and stuff. And you'd open it up and there'd be a little boy in there with a monster. And it was a playset. Mm-hmm. Well, I had one as a kid. And now I have basically the whole collection.
The whole collection.
Yeah, because I didn't have it as a kid. So everything, like the 90s, that's like, my eyes were huge, but I didn't have nothing. And then once I started getting into my 20s, it was like all that stuff that kind of stuck with me. And now I can find it for, you know, a few bucks at the thrift store, at the swap meet, at the remate. And so like that was just like go time for me. I was just like, oh, hell yeah, I got too much money. Right, I got that FAFSA money, yeah. So
the FAFSA money.
and to me, like it was a game because I could find these toys for a few bucks and flip them. I could hustle them, and so eventually I realized that, people don't want toys from 20 years ago, but they will buy T-shirts and clothes from 20 years ago, and so that kind of started. And slowly but surely, like I started running into people like at the swap meet, like back in the day when Sunnyside, before we had the Amazon, there was the Sunnyside swap meet, and for the longest time, like I was just the kid with the wagon, you know, I would go around with the wagon and it would just be filled with clothes, and people would look at me crazy because I was picking up these things for 50 cents, $1.
The t-shirts.
Yep.
Oh, you were buying them or you were selling them?
Yeah, I was buying them. Mm-hmm. And at the swap meet, like, clothes just didn't go. Like, you know, people were just like, that's old clothes. Like, we don't, whatever. And I just thought it was so cool. I knew there was money in it. So I was collecting, and of course, like, you know, young dudes, you lock eyes. You're like, hey, you're not 50 years old out here, whatever. And eventually we met. Yeah, I met a few cats and tried to do events, and yeah, for like about 3 years, from like 2016 to like 2018, we were doing events. And I was like, I mean, me personally, I was making like $100, $50, losing money. Like, vendor fee was 30. You know, I bought food. I'm in the hole.
Were you doing those pop-ups back then, like during the
We were trying
16 to 18? Because I know there was a lot of pop-ups like at backyards and stuff back then. I don't know if there still exists now, but I know like during COVID and stuff, there was a bunch of pop-ups back in
Yeah, COVID really changed a lot of things. So basically, I'd tried to be in a record store. That was my first time being trying a brick and mortar. And my idea was, hey, you guys sell records, old records, obviously. I sell old clothes, you know. Let me bring in this stuff. And at the time, it worked okay, but you know, some stuff happened. I was dating a girl at the time, and she got me kicked out of the shop, which was a blessing, because it gave me a chance to move out of there, and my stuff kind of sat for a while. And then like a few months later, COVID happened, and that's when prices started going up. Like Disney shirts started like going for hundreds. There was like a Disney shirt I had on my rack for 10, 15, $20. And I was like, nobody's ever going to want this Pirates of the Caribbean, Mickey and Goofy, Only Dead Man, whatever on the back. Nobody wants it. Nobody bought it for $20, whatever. I'm going to use it as a rag. I'm going to have it fade. I used that thing for whatever in the backyard, threw it away. And then COVID hit, and it was probably like a $150 shirt.
Wow, you think people just had way too much money at that time people were getting unemployment, people were getting stimulus.
It's like anything. There's trends, it's a market. And so for whatever reason, I mean, Disney's always hot, right? Yeah. Disney adults always want stuff. But at the time, that was just the trend. And even like there was a guy who bought like a $5,000 Genie shirt. And that was like big news. That was in the New York Times. But you know, it's just a trend. It was just a trend.
I feel like during COVID, a lot of people were getting like really creative. So all that just blew up. Because I know during COVID, we bought a Keurig. What's it called? Is it Keurig or what's it called?
The coffee machine?
No, it's not the Keurig. The one that cuts the stickers and you put it on shorts.
Oh, Cricket.
Cricket. There you go. We bought one of those and we started making cups. We started making shirts. We started making a whole bunch of stuff during that time.
That was popular for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and little things like happen like that, and I think it just depends on like I think like certain people's mindsets. Like for me, I always tell people like, do not look for a second hustle. Get a hobby first, right? Because the hobby you do when you're out of work, when you know you don't care how much money it costs, you don't care how much time or effort, you just do it because you love it. That's the thing that should be your side hustle. Not because it's gonna make money, but because you're putting your time and energy and money into it. And Uncle Sam can give you a little, you know, kickback at, you know, for taxis or whatever. Like, hey, you know, that was a write-off. This was a write-off. Like, if you're a photographer, you're still gonna buy film. You're still gonna develop your film. You're still gonna buy cameras. Might as well have it be a write-off, right? But do not expect to make money off your photography right away, right? And so that's kind of how this was for me. It was a hobby. It was an addiction. It was an addiction buying old clothes. Thankfully, there was a way for me to make money off it. But that's kind of how I tell people, like, they need to think about it, right? Mm-hmm. Like,
I have a question for that, since you mentioned write-offs. So are you able to, and this is a question I've been searching for a long time, are you able, like, you have your business, are you able to write that against your because you're also a W-2 employee, right? Are you able to write that off against your W-2 income?
I don't know. I have a tax person for that, but like a lot of the stuff that I purchase in my everyday life, it ends up being for the business, or I end up writing off for my business, right? Like I just bought like a $100 like anime T-shirt, and cool, it's a tax write-off because it's for my store. Yes, I'm gonna wear it a few times, but you know that works out for me really well. Anytime we go travel, it's like, hey, we got to stop at this thrift store and this thrift store and this thrift store, and the mileage of it and all that, like it works out. Doesn't work out if I think about it as a business, right? Because thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna go to the coast and go hit up, you know, these thrifts or these spots. When you take in gas, money, you know, all that, you're not gonna find enough to make it equal out. But when you're like, well, I took the family, like, hey, you know, this vacation, now we have a little bit, we have the mileage written off, we have some of the food written off, we have, you know, this stuff written off, like.
So it's not as expensive now.
Yeah, it's the cherry on top, right? We're not focusing on the real meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah. So you talked about mindset a little bit, and I know, you know, off camera we talked about your parents a little bit and how you said, you know, your mom not only, you know, worked, but she started, you know, saying, hey, we got to work smart. And maybe talk a little bit about that and how that shaped into you to, you know, start. I know you kind of stumbled across reselling, but did you always look for something like that?
I mean, again, like Southeast Fresno, we're going to the Fresno Fairgrounds every weekend because, you know, dad needs new tools, mom needs new kitchenware. I'm trying to beg for a toy, you know, I'm trying to get a little Ninja Turtle or something. But at some point, like, you realize, like, we don't have money. Like, I gotta figure out how to get the stuff I want, right? And so for me, and I don't know at what point I started seeing it in my mom, but like I remember I was out there raking leaves for neighbors and doing this and that, and eventually, like in 7th grade, I was selling candies, and my mom would take me to Costco, buy a little box of $5, $6 candies, and there were 200 in there, so I put 10 in a bag, some for $1, got $14 profit. So, you know, about $30 a week, which wasn't bad for a 7th grader. And I was just like, okay, like, yeah, I like this. Like, I like having a little business. To me, it was like being a little kid again and playing store, you know? And it was crazy to be like, even when I opened my own store, I'm like, this is crazy. People are coming up with stuff and giving me, and I'm taking their money. I'm like, I feel like I'm just pretending to be a store owner. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, but you know, that I think my cult, like being Mexican, I think the area that we lived in and being in that, you know, being in that tax bracket really kind of pushed me to have the mindset that I do, which is I can't buy it, so I gotta find it. I gotta make do. I gotta figure something out. And that creativity, like you don't get to be that creative when you have everything you want, right?
All those resources, yeah.
Like you need, you know, you wanna think outside the box. Like you got to be in the box first, right? And when you're rich, like you're not in the box. Like the whole world's your oyster. So I think coming from that background, like definitely helps, right? Having limited opportunities made me want to strive for more
and get creative with it to make it happen, because that's the only way. You got to make it stretch and fit any way possible. And what did your parents do for work?
So my dad was a truck driver for like 30-40 years. He did foster farms. So like, yeah, if you check my closet, like I got his old driving jackets and foster farms t-shirts, and I got little plushes of the chickens. And my mom was she was a stay-at-home mom, but man, like that, I mean, for a Mexican mom, that is not staying at. That's real work.
Yeah.
That's real work.
100%.
She took care of a lot of people in her neighborhood, in her community. All her neighbors, she would take care of because they would be elderly. So that again, like that's what influenced me to become a teacher, to have the attitude that I have towards the business, where I'm just like, if you want to put the effort, if you want to fuck with me, like, come on, let's go. We could go together. Like, we can push this train in the same direction rather than, you push your cart and I push my cart. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Did your mom? Because you were talking a little bit about your mom being like a little smarter, and we've had what six episodes now, and every entrepreneur starts the same. When they're young, they're selling stuff. I know I was selling I like selling chocolates when I was younger for the fundraisers and stuff. So I started doing it like on my own.
You ever upsell the chocolates?
Yeah. Well, there's a story I was telling Mikey. This one time I was going around my apartment selling chocolate bars. They were for $1. And
I didn't know where this is going.
This one guy, some older guy, I was just walking. I saw him at the mailbox. I was like, hey, do you want to buy some chocolates? He's all like, oh yeah, like he was all excited and stuff for the chocolates. And he ended up giving me 50 cents extra, and I was gonna give him his change. He's like, oh no, just keep it. And then that blew my mind. Like, it's only $1, but you're willing to give me extra. And it's like, there's like that's when my mind exploded. Like, I was like, there's money out there. Mm-hmm. But I don't know where I got that from. I don't know where I got that wanting to sell stuff from, because my mom was not a business owner. My dad was not a business owner. They both just worked really hard. What do you think got you to do that? Because raking leaves isn't something that just a random kid thinks of.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to like what you were saying. Like, we saw them work really hard, and in a sense, like, I love them, but I don't want to do that. I'm trying to think smarter, not work harder type of thing. And I think, like, your experience, like, seeing that extra 50 cents, like, kind of opened up your mind to maybe, like, okay, yeah, like you said, like, there's more money to be made out there. You just got to figure out how to make it, how to justify it to people.
Yeah. Right?
And, yeah, because my mom didn't sell stuff. She just, I don't know. She told my dad to save money so that they could buy a house. And that, to me, was like, okay, I can use money to make more money. And I just got to figure out how.
How to get the money first is the biggest route. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to what you were saying too, David, and you also, Fabio, is like, I remember, seeing my parents work extremely hard. And they were business owners, so I did see some of the business, but it wasn't necessarily like, well, they own their business, but it was more like, they almost like they were a slave to the business. So they were just there. Like, my dad, he'd go in 8 in the morning or earlier, prep everything, leave like around 2 or 3, come and pick me up from school, be here, and he would take a nap, I remember, for like 2 hours, and then go back to the restaurant at 5, and then come back at 10. And then my mom would go at like 11, get all of like the lunch rush, and like sometimes even earlier for breakfast, and then she would work the whole, like, mainly almost all the dinner shift. She'd normally get off like around 7. So I remember when I was seeing that, I grew up, I would say middle class up until probably like 2008. And, that's when everything kind of went, and the business started doing worse. And that's when they started working more. It wasn't always that bad, right? But I'd probably say after that. And so I remember, it was, time to get stuff. And I hated asking them for money, but the cool thing I had was the opportunity to work at the business as well. So I would bus tables, and then as I got older, I did a little bit of serving. We sold it when I was 18, so I didn't get into serving too much, but I mean, dude, it was cool. I would work bussing tables like every Friday, and like on the weekends if I could, and like Friday nights were great because I was like 12, 13, and I'd make like $25 that night, like off of tips and stuff like that. So it was pretty sweet, you know. But I think that them seeing how hard they worked and me not wanting to ask them for anything definitely made me work harder to try to figure out something else.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned like not wanting to ask them, because I know that's how it was for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't want to ask my parents for money. Like I didn't want to ask for stuff. I wanted to like earn it or like figure out a way, because you know my dad's out there busting his ass. Like I don't want to waste his energy. I feel guilty for that. So yeah, I think that definitely plays a part, right? Like you have this need, but you don't want to hinder your loved ones with that need, and so it's kind of like, you know, you got to problem solve.
Yeah, it get creative.
Oh, for me, I didn't. My dad, he'd never let me work. He wouldn't let me do any of that stuff. So I like doing it, but he wouldn't let me do it. So what his compromise for me not to work, because he wanted me to focus on school, was giving me $20 every 2 weeks, right? But I wanted more. Like I wanted more money.
Yeah.
So what we would do is, when he would pick us up from my mom's, he would take us to go out to eat, and then he would bring us back, and on a Friday he'll give us the money, right? So I negotiated with him. I was like, you know what? Don't take us out to eat. Give me $50 at the end of the 2 weeks, and if you do take us out to eat, let's do the math real quick. This is how much you're spending. So you'll deduct every day that you take us out to eat. You'll deduct it from the $50. I ended up getting $50 every 2 weeks, even if he took us out to eat. But like I tried to figure out how I could make more money, and I negotiated no food, but I'm making more money at the end of it.
The gears don't stop. The gears do not stop, because it's like a little puzzle that you obsess with, right? Like, how do I turn wine from water? Like, how do I make this happen?
You need another one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so what's your relationship with your parents now? Nowadays?
It's funny because like for a while, like my whole life, my mom had the attitude of, I love you, but you're gonna give me a heart attack, because you know, it started off with the candies. Even in middle school, like I remember I tried to organize everybody at school to show up to school for not in uniforms. All on one day, because they can't take us all to the uniform center. They don't have enough clothes for all of us to have to change out. And
you guys had uniforms at school?
That was at Computech?
Yeah,
you went to Computech. Oh, dope.
So middle school, yeah, we had uniforms, and I tried to, you know, have a little student rebellion. They squashed it real quick, but looking back on it, I'm like, oh, like I hated school. I hated the way teachers talked to me. So like that's why I became a teacher. That's why I did the things that I did. But it was like that. It was skateboarding. Like, you're gonna kill yourself skateboarding. You're gonna get in trouble doing graffiti. You're gonna get hurt at the punk rock show. But all those little things helped me gain knowledge and insight into the whole vintage thing. Right now, I recognize bands. I recognize, you know, the value of skate stuff. So my mom really kind of appreciates that she trusted me. Like, she really trusted me to do the right thing, even though I wasn't doing good things at the time. That I was doing it for a good reason, right? And it was always like, Mom, I just want to be out there with my friends. I feel free when I'm skateboarding. Or, Mom, I just want to make art, and I want people to see it. And so she always kind of tolerated the bad behavior because I had good reasons. And it was even that with the vintage stuff. You're buying so much. How much did you spend on clothes? How much did you pay for this toy? And it took a few years for her to see the money coming in, where I'm like, look, Mom, I bought this shirt for $1, but it's worth $100. Look. And then she started like realizing, like, okay, like, you're crazy like a fox, basically. My dad, he's always been pretty stern and kind of a grumpy dude, but he came around enough. But yeah, my mom's the nurturer.
Yeah.
I know you came from like a rough area. What do you think kept you away from all that, like gang violence and stuff?
I mean, look at me. You think they wanted me in the gang?
No, but like from a young, cause it doesn't start like when you're in high school.
Yeah.
Like it starts like really young. I remember I was in 4th, 5th grade, and they were already talking about it. Like, Bulldogs are the biggest gang.
Yeah.
Like you gotta be a Bulldog. Like,
yeah, it was funny because my elementary school's school color was red. So, and I know like, other schools are like, you can't even wear that. Yeah. But I honestly think, yeah, like, I mean, so much of my life was, I'm not white, I'm Mexican. Like, I speak Spanish. My parents are from Mexico. But even as like a little kid, like, hey, güero, like, hey, white. So yeah. I don't think they wanted me in the game. I honestly don't think.
But you did see that, you witnessed and experienced it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, got jumped a few times here and there. Like, took a few punches. Like, I mean, that's just that's growing up.
That especially during that time.
Yeah, that's just growing up. Like, yeah, one time, like, I got my they jumped me and my friends for our skateboards and stuff. But I think honestly, like, it's creativity, right? Like, so when I used to work in the classroom, I would notice that kids would get bored, and so, and sometimes they were really smart kids, and so what I tell parents now is, you got to keep up with your kids. You have to keep their mental level interested, to a certain degree, because if they start getting bored, and you don't challenge them, then they're going to start to become little supervillains instead of little superheroes, right? Yeah. They have great potential, a lot of energy, a lot of creativity. And when you're in school, you got a lot of time.
Yeah.
And, I saw a lot of kids coming up with stuff, like rigging stuff up. And I was just like, man, like, y'all remind me of prisoners, like Jimmy rigging stuff. And it's like, oh, because you're bored. This material isn't challenging you. And, I need to figure out how to challenge you. And so for me, it was like art. It was, skateboarding. It was video games. Like, that stuff was interesting enough that, I wasn't out just rolling with the wrong people, I guess.
That's crazy because I remember when I was in elementary school, yeah, they had those mechanical pencils, and I don't know if you know which ones I'm talking about. You take the writing piece off,
break the lead, and
and then you could put a staple in there, and then it would shoot staples. And then there was another one where they were taking the razors off of the pencil sharpeners, and then same thing, you could stick it right onto one of those pencils, and they're like, little shanks. So you said prison, I'm like, yeah, that was like an elementary school shank right there.
In middle school, we were getting the locks from the lockers, and we would get bandanas, and we'd make fucking weapons out of it.
Yeah. That's crazy. And you just have to, like, if you put schoolwork in front of kids and they're not like interested in it, like, they're not gonna put effort into it, right? Like, you need to make things engaging.
Yeah.
So, when I would teach, like, especially like for English and for history, it was always like, let's talk about, like, let's be real, y'all. Like, let's talk about this for reals. And I would be a little devil's advocate, like, I don't know if you guys ever read Charlotte's Web, right? Mm-hmm. Little pig and the spider who loves him and spells out all this stuff to try to save him from being killed. Mm-hmm. I remember telling them, like, I don't think he deserves to live. Like, he is a whiner. All he does is complain. He does nothing for his friends. And this poor, super smart, loving, intelligent spider works herself to death just so that you could live. Like, that's not a hero to me. And just so that we can have a conversation outside of the norm. And so
Get the wheels turning.
What grade do you teach?
I used to teach 5th, but now I work with kinder through 6. So I it's cool because I get to get them early, and I get to really, like, what I tell parents is at that age, they're learning to learn. And so you got to expose them to everything, right? They want to do music, show them music. They want to do karate, they want to do this, they want to do that. Like, show it to them, because by middle school, that's when they have to start sharpening those skills.
Yeah.
So that by high school, they start becoming amateurs at those. And, like, when you think about great pieces of art, a lot of teenagers, that's when they made their best, albums, their best poetry. They wrote their breakout book, because by college, you don't have time for that anymore, right? Like, I don't get to doodle no more because I'm doing work all day. Like, I love work meetings because then and then what I tell families is, like, you want them to have a skill so that by the time they get to college, they have something that they can do outside of working at an hourly job.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, you were into music in elementary school. Hey, maybe you started a band in high school. Well, now in college, you could teach kids you could do music lessons, right? And once you graduate, maybe you continue to do it, or you just depend on your full-time job, right? But I tell people that's becoming a 3-dimensional person, right? Versus a 2-dimensional person who's just worried about home and work, right? You got to have that hobby to make you
have
stand
something
out.
to live for too, because I feel like a lot of people are just fighting to survive, fighting to make ends meet, and it's like when you're in this survival mode, you can't think of anything else. And I feel like that's why a lot of people, maybe have depression and things like that, because it's just a struggle every day. And I mean, you fight till the end of the month, and then the first comes around and you're back in that race once again. It doesn't give you any time.
Yeah, I call it feeding the soul. You, like, you pay your bills, and then once that's all done, like, you got to feed your soul, right? You got to punch that time card that lets you go to bed and be like, cool, like, I got something to look forward to, right? Something to build for.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's great. And a lot of people, like you said, they call it a side hustle, but you said call it a hobby, you know, and start there. And then some people end up, like you said, if you don't focus on the money, sometimes the money comes in even greater, and it's even, it's way more amazing. Yeah,
the example I always tell people is like, think about that. And we've always heard this, like, cliche, or like this situation where it's like, nah, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna go full time on my band, or I'm gonna go full time on this. And it's like, I know that person at that time feels like that's a sacrifice. But really, like, the real sacrifice is putting your 9 to 5 and then still putting in that same amount of work that your band needs, and trying to fill that gas tank until it gets you to where you want to be. Because it's real easy to focus on your hobby because you love that, but it can get sour real quick. Like, I remember my mom telling me, like, why didn't you become an artist? Why'd you become a teacher? I'm like, Mom, I want to pay my bills. Like, I like to do art. I've done art, in my free time forever. I can still do art in my free time. I don't need to corrupt something that I love with money, with having to, change, like, have to do it somebody else's way. And because then I might lose out on my my living space and my passion, and then you're really gonna feel it. You're really gonna feel like it sucks.
What are some of your, like, who would you say that influenced you the most, like, growing up? Or I'm like, who taught you how to be so cool, man?
I don't know, honestly, like, because I remember growing up always wishing there was, like, I had an older big brother. I always wish I had older friends, because the idea of, like, apprenticeship, the idea that there's a more knowledgeable person who could teach me like the right way to do stuff or the smart way to do stuff was always so appealing. And there wasn't nobody, there wasn't anybody there. Like honestly, like probably my sensei, like, cause when I was 6, I started going to karate, and yeah, I'm what, 35 now, so almost 30 years of going to karate with the same person. That's a trip.
You're still doing karate?
Trip.
Yeah.
Oh shoot! Nice.
So I do Japanese Shotokan karate, and it's a lot of. I grew up Catholic, not Catholic anymore, but I always joke that like karate gives me that Catholic guilt. Like if I don't do it, I start to hear my sensei, like I hear that voice where I'm like, this is an art, and you know, this is an art that's passed down for hundreds of years, and you know that kind of falls on me, and I have to share that with people, right? It's kind of like a candle, like spreading that flame isn't gonna make less for me. It's just gonna spread it, and so that's kind of the attitude that I've had with, education, with the business, with myself. It's like I gotta. The better we're all off, the better everybody else. The better off I'm at. I'm doing so. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So kind of shifting gears a little bit. So you guys, you had your journey. You had the first fault in the brick and mortar with that record company. You said it was a blessing.
Yep.
And then you guys ended up starting the Bad Boys Club.
It was BadKidsClub.
Or BadKidsClub.
So basically, like right around COVID time, like I don't know what to call it, but I would say I've realized that there are points in time where like everything's off the table, right? The settings is off. The structure of everything is flipped over. And so when things like that happen, you got to be ready to make a move, right? And so what I was thinking was, and I won't even take credit, my friend at the time, or my friend hits me up and he's like, hey, bro, let's open a store together. And I'm like, no. He's like, I found this spot. It's in downtown. It's by the Fulton Mall. It's cheap. Like, it's great. Like, we'll do it. And my thinking at the time was, it's COVID. We're just coming out of COVID. Like, I saw the boom in vintage. I saw the crazy, lives got really big at that time. So people going on Instagram Live and doing auctions. And that's kind of what ended up giving life to, like, other sites like WhyNot. And, these other selling platforms started getting wise to stuff. So I take them up on the offer because in my mind, I'm like, people want to shop in person. They want to touch this stuff. They want to feel this stuff. They don't want to do online. And so we open the store. We just call it Mammoth Mall Streetwear and Vintage. It's not BadKidsClub because I'm like, nah, that's just me, right? That's just me. And I didn't want the store to just be about me. 6 months later, he's like, so how long do you want to do this? I'm like, bro, what? He's like, I'm not trying to do this forever. So I'm like, all right. So he leaves, and he leaves me with the store. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I gotta put my name. I gotta put my name on the store, basically. Like, I don't want to. I'm not hungry for the spotlight. I'm a communist. I want everybody to be equal, or I want us to all work together. But I get it. Like, somebody's got to step up, and so that's when I put my business name on the store name, and just really just try to bring people into the club, right, into the gang.
Yeah.
I grew up watching like Little Rascals and Peanuts, and like a lot of like 90s cartoons like have these little childhood gangs, right? Like honestly, like Ed and Eddie, that shit.
I was about to say
that was what
the Jawbreakers.
Yes, that's what got me hustling. Like seeing them come up with schemes.
Or Rocket Power. Have you ever watched that one?
Yeah, I was just watching it yesterday. But that whole idea that like, you know, a gang is a group of kids basically fucking around and I don't know, creating a band or making a club or you know, selling lemonade, whatever it is, that appealed to me, right? From a young age, but even growing up, it's like, man, like I want a crew. I want to like, and like, again, like going back to the graffiti thing, like I wasn't in a graffiti crew. I wasn't in a gang. So I had to figure out like how to get like like-minded people to roll with me. And really it was just through the store, through events, through pop-ups, through Art Hop. And yeah, like eventually like people really started to fuck with it. They really enjoyed it. Like, you know, I have people who've shopped with me since the record store, and they come into the store now. Or like I had some high schoolers be like, oh, like I was a freshman when I started shopping with you, and now I'm shopping one last time before I go to college, right? So that's a trip for me because I'm just like, I can't even remember people's faces, but I hear that and I'll see the clothes because I can tell the shirt. I won't like. I had somebody come say like, I've been coming here for like 4 years, 5 years, or I've been shopping with you for 5 years, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I've not realized that. But if you come in like wearing a shirt that I sold you, like I'll remember that.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool to be a part of something, and especially like not even recognize like what part you're playing.
How do you think you build your community? Because if people's been shopping for you for that long, you must have like a really good community.
The loyal fan, not maybe, I don't know if a fan base, but like loyal clientele base, maybe.
I think the beauty of vintage is it's so random. Like I used to sell at Art Hop. Like I mentioned, I used to sell at Art Hop, and I used to sell as an artist. And what I realized was, it's hard to be an artist, especially at Art Hop, because you got to do your thing, right? So you do your thing, you paint, you draw, you do whatever. Now you have to put yourself out there, and you have to convince people to stop and look at you and look at your stuff. And so that's one hill, right? But now the second battle is, will you buy it? And art is a tough sell. A lot of times it's prints, it's paintings, but what I start to realize is people are vain, right? What good is a painting that hangs up in your house? Like the hoes ain't gonna see that. Like you gotta get them there first. A t-shirt, but like people are vain. They want to wear this art out on themselves, and so that's what really started to like, you know, my love of t-shirts and clothing. Like that's when I was like, I don't have to convince anybody to buy that Mickey Mouse shirt. They've seen that character before. Like they get to make their own decisions on what they want to buy instead of me having to be a salesperson. And so that's when I shifted from art to like more, you know, to finding stuff and just allowing people to buy it. But it's hard to find your community. Like honestly, like you just gotta be loud. Like it's kind of like, I mean, I'm married, so I feel like I did the same thing that I did to get her. I was just really loud, and like you just gotta be like yourself 100%. And the people who fuck with you and the people who like that will be attracted to it, and the people who don't, like, you know, you don't want to hang out with them either. So
yeah,
better that they you know, distance themselves now than later.
How'd you get involved with Why Not Fresno, or what exactly is Why Not Fresno?
So, Why Not Wednesdays is basically the city's boo boo or replacement for outdoor vending that used to happen during Art Hop. Um, is for those who don't know, Art
Yeah,
Hop.
what you can go into what happened with Art Hop or Art Hop's history.
So basically, quick little history lesson. I'm sure I'll probably get some things wrong, but Art Hop was started by the Arts Council probably in '98. First Thursday of the month for galleries and really just art venues to open up their doors to invite people in. And so, for what that looked like for me in 2007, in high school, like senior, just I was riding my bike around, going to galleries, just sipping little, stealing little glasses of wine and walking around and, doing that. Um, I'd say probably 2015, 16, 17, somewhere around there, it starts to pick up. And because there are more outdoor vendors setting up in different parts of town. But kind of like I mentioned before, I set up at Warner's 2015 because a friend had set up randomly. He's like, I just showed up and they didn't say anything. Come out full. And I was like, okay. And so that happened. And yeah, it eventually got to the size where it was taking up all of Fulton Street. And some of those vendors were there because they just found a little open spot on the sidewalk and they claimed it. Some people had agreements with stores and store owners hey, yeah, you can set up in front of us. What me and other people like Moss, Fresno, and Alley in the Valley, we were taking out permits and just organizing events, right? Calling people to sign up with us, putting out a flyer, and promoting that flyer for the day. The city did not like the size that it got to. And because there was a lot of unregulated vendors, right? People just setting up on the outskirts of the permitted areas. They complained about bathrooms, all these other things. Basically, we were addressing most of them, but we couldn't address the whole Fulton Street. So they cut it. They scared people off. They said August is too hot. No outdoor vendors. And I think what they did was once they saw that, hey, that worked. Nobody showed up. We can say the quiet part out loud now. We don't want any outdoor vendors for Art Hop. And yeah, that threw people for a really big curve. And really the whole concept of Art Hop kind of got shattered, right? Into pieces where this is what Art Hop truly was, right? Galleries and artists, things like that. But now we have these vendors who don't have a place to go. We have these downtown businesses that are now suffering because the event is canceled, right? It's not really canceled, but most people think that.
Not as much foot traffic anymore.
Yeah. And so basically, Arias and Dyer kind of tap us being organizers and local business owners, into a meeting to explain everything. And to tell us, well, we're going to give you guys an opportunity to create a new event to, fill that void of outdoor vending. And the city's going to provide bathrooms, police, and street closures. And, and that's when it kind of gets crazy. That's when people start claiming this is a money grab. This is for these reasons, that reason. And it could get real messy from there. But ultimately, I think it was just those city officials and the Arts Council that decided we want this to happen. And yeah, they basically bulldozed everything and are now asking us to kind of rebuild, which kind of going back to COVID and stuff, these things happen, right? These things happen where the playing field is leveled and we got to rebuild and figure out what are we gonna do? And I'm not gonna sit on the sidelines because I don't like them, and let my meal ticket or let that train go by. Like, it's like I always tell my friends, like, I don't want to. I want us to all get fed. I want us to all get a bite. But shoot, if I can sit at the head of the table, or if I can arrange where I sit, like, I will. So for me, being a part of that, of the construction of a new event, was more important than holding on to anything that was lost already, right? Like, I got the opportunity to influence this event and to implement ideas that I have or that my community has. Like, I'm gonna do it, because there are people who have taken the other direction or the other attitude where we're gonna protest, we're gonna hold out for Art Hop as much as we can, and it's been 3 months, and like, where are y'all at, right? You don't.
They're shooting themselves in the foot, basically. Yeah.
And even ironically, like, the same group that was fighting and protesting and calling us sellouts and this and that, now they're considering, like, well, maybe we'll join you guys to make it better. Okay, I get it. Like, you can't beat them, join them, but I didn't make a fool of myself for 3 months before I came to that conclusion.
So is tomorrow gonna be the first Why Not Wednesday?
Tomorrow's the second one.
Uh-huh.
And it's a fine event. It's fine. The ins and outs, the basics of it are cool, but it's not Art Hop, because what made Art Hop so exciting was that people wanted to be there. They wanted to. I had people spray painting, murals, lowriders out there, like, bands playing, because they wanted to. For this Why Not thing, they don't want to do it because they're not comfortable with the idea yet. And I understand, but at the same time, like, from a business perspective, we got to get things going, right? We got to start building. So this is the second one. I think it's fine, but really, for the long run, we just need more people to embrace the open house mentality, right? Like, I want businesses all over town saying, hey, we got these Why Not Wednesday specials, because that's what's gonna bring back that night where you can go downtown, go walk around, have a drink, do all these things, and then go somewhere else in Fresno and pretty much go party, right? We're not there yet, right? Third Wednesday of the month is not anything special, which is fine, right? The first Thursday of the month wasn't special, but
it
also started a long time ago, so it slowly built up to what it was. It kind of like what do they call it? The hockey stick?
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably slowly grew, and then 2015, 2016, boom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably going to be the same thing with you guys. But you guys have an understanding of what it is already, so maybe you guys could grow faster.
Yeah.
You're not pioneering it anymore.
It's just you guys are building something new, but with the blueprint already.
And it's a good event for basically what we used to have. It's not the only event we have, right? We're always doing stuff. Like my homegirls, I have two homegirls who help me run the shop, and they took on their own event, and they created the Bad Girls Market, right? Like, kind of taking the whole Bad Kids thing.
Mm-hmm.
They do the Bad Girls Market, and we collaborated a lot about that because we didn't just want to do another expo or an event and so we had to offer something to people that was unique, and for them it was seeing that the vintage community is so male dominated,
Mm-hmm.
that they felt like they wanted a space that was exclusively for girls, for women, or for just femme type of stuff. And it got really, really big. Like, I'll argue that they're bigger than me. But that's great because that benefits me.
Yeah.
Right? They're my homegirls. They help me with the shop. and vice versa, right? The shop helps them.
Turn that way. Man.
Fabio, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, in this segment, I pretty much just ask a series of questions.
All right.
So the first one being, since you're such a big part of that community, dude, what are some of the hidden gems in Fresno?
So downtown. So on my Instagram, I have a little list of all the vintage stores, all the thrift stores in downtown Fresno. Downtown has a good handful of what I call true thrift stores, right? Salvation Army, DAV, Emerald. You'll walk in and everything's thrift store price, right? Then there's vintage stores downtown. There's Valley, Yoshi Now, Summon Clothing. These places are a little bit more curated, right? A little bit more handpicked. But also like in Tower, there's like my boy BBOs, Marty. Like he's been doing this forever. Like he's an OG, like right there with like Yoshi Now. Another little hidden spot I would say too is Palm and Olive. Right on the corner, there's an antique store, but I have a homie who has a booth in there. Beautiful 70s, 80s like vintage stuff. Whereas we're usually like more streetwear, 80s, 90s type of stuff, more kind of hip-hop-y stuff.
That's pretty cool. What is the biggest profit you ever made, and was it the chickens?
The chickens, that was like $5. The biggest profit, that's tough because like things that stand out will be like I remember I bought like a Chuck E. Cheese suit. It was the bear. I forget his name. But it was a mascot suit. Bought that for $150. Sold it for like $700-800.
Sheesh.
Of course, there's shipping and all that. So, whatever. Trying to think of what else I've bought, but damn, that's a tough one.
What did you buy that chicken for? And I know you said it was like $150.
Oh, $5, $10.
I mean,
$25.
But
Like,
if you think about that on like an investor standpoint, you know, from like the margin,
I
from
know my money.
$150.
Yeah.
like I'm trying to think about like the most expensive shirt I've ever sold. It's probably like maybe like 2-3. I don't deal in like what. There are some people who will sell one shirt and it's like $500, $600. Usually I keep those shirts. So maybe that's a better question.
Yeah. Is there a specific situation that you could recall that significantly changed your life to where it made you the person who you are today?
Sheesh. I don't remember.
We're getting
I
deep.
don't
We're going deep in the water.
I don't remember being born, but probably that. I think it's just probably like just my childhood, just growing up and being experiencing everything that I couldn't afford, and then just going through, like I said, graffiti, skateboarding, punk rock shows, like, and just seeing like. These people don't have money, but they're also like have a little community where they sell stuff, right?
Being poor did it to me too.
Honestly, like being poor is it gives you the muscles to pull yourself out of that like crab bucket, right?
Do you have any graffiti like tagging stories, like crazy situations you might have been in?
Your name first.
No.
He's like, leave it out, man.
I just used to paint trains. Like, I mean, I used to go, like, I used to paint all over downtown. And for a while, I used to have, like, a really nice spot on a building that I won't name and expose myself. You can still see it. It's very close
Maybe
to
talk
the
off
brewery.
camera. Yeah.
But I think just painting trains, that was probably just the most beautiful thing, because it was, you know, you just go out there at night, it's just you. Sometimes it was my homie and we just paint. It was just a little art gallery.
Have a metal canvas.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I miss those days, but
Do you guys take lights out there, or how do you?
you could see and I mean, at the time I had a Nokia, so just beep.
All right, next question. You mentioned how the school system kind of minimized your creativity endeavors. So, and since you're a teacher, how would you say that our school system can be better?
I mean, honestly, like it's hard because you have to kind of have common sense in the way that you need to be able to talk to students, right? I remember that I had a student named Donnie. He lived on the west side, and I worked at the elementary school next to Bullard, right, Gibson. So, and Donnie lived next door to my sensei, right, who I had known for 20 something years. And my sensei and Donnie are both black, right? So I have Donnie at my school running around with the do-rag over his head going, ah, like being crazy. And I'm like, Donnie, like, bro, do you think these white teachers are going to know even what this is? No. Okay, so do you think they're going to cut you any slack? No. And I'm basically just hinting at him like, bro, come on, you got to code switch. You have to act a certain way because we're at school. And I would tell them that, I wouldn't have this in and they would see the hole. And I would tell them like, I don't dress like this at home, right? I go home and I look different, but I get to be that person because I'm taking care of my responsibilities right now. And so I think the school system just tells you what to do without reasoning. And they tell you what to believe. They tell you, 1 + 1 is 2, and just, there's no reasoning to it. And I think when there's a reason behind the decisions that you make, it's more impactful, right?
It's a better
I
understanding
wanted to
for
ask
sure.
this earlier because I'm dealing with this with my brother right now. Do you feel like kids aren't getting challenged, both like educationally and like creatively? Because my brother, he's in 10th grade, and he's doing 11 times 0, like, and he's like, this is way too easy for me. Like, I need something like more challenging.
I mean, I could definitely see schools and teachers taking that route because, I mean, Fresno Unified has had a history of like just getting kids through the exit, right? Just like, I think there was a story a few years ago about a senior who couldn't read and he was graduating, right? So yeah, I do think that kids aren't being challenged or they're not being pushed creatively, right? And it really just depends on the teacher, right? The schools can push curriculum so much, but like with Common Core, you can teach that a wrong way and you can teach them a right way, right? You can tell kids you have to learn every single way that you can add 5 plus or 6 plus 7. And if you don't show me this way, it's wrong. Versus, hey, let's have a conversation about how do you add 6 plus 7? Oh, I add it by 6 plus 7. Oh, 5 and 5 is 10. 2 and 1 is 3. 13. Oh, okay. Well, I know 7 and 7 is 14, but it's 6, so I just take 1 away, right? That's a different conversation, and that's more meaningful than explain every single way.
So it's basically a better way to teach, you would say? Because I feel like it's very traditional in the way that we have it. It's like, when are we going to push that conversation of when and how are we going to teach these kids how to survive in real life?
Right. I always joke with parents, like, we were told we weren't going to have a calculator in our pockets, so don't use a calculator, right? And look at us now, right? We got a whole supercomputer in our hands. So the idea is we don't need to be giving kids the answers. We need to be giving them thinking skills. We need to give them the idea of how do you use tools to solve a problem, because the problems that we have now aren't going to be the problems that they face once they're in the real world.
So, wow. So I'm very interested in this then, because I was going to ask you a completely different question, but technology is my thing. In the same line, kids nowadays have ChatGPT. They have a lot of AI technology that could easily do their homework. So how do we have that conversation? Because
it's so crazy to me that kids are almost dumber computer wise now than we were in their grade. Because at that time, like, everybody likes to joke, well, I was doing coding when MySpace was out, right? Like, but in all honesty, it's kind of like the lack of accessibility made us have to jump through hoops to learn certain things. Mm-hmm. And kids nowadays, they don't even know how to copy and paste the damn question into Google, right? Going to like AI and ChatGPT and stuff like that, kids just don't know how to use it appropriately, right? If I want to write a paper on whether capital punishment is good or bad, I'm not going to have ChatGPT write the paper for me. I'm going to have it list out all the reasons that people have used in the past for and against it, and then use that to my advantage, right? Kind of like the same thing with like art. Like, why am I going to paint something on a canvas just straight up like that when I can use a computer or a digital tablet to sketch it out, plan it out? I can change the colors and plan everything right there before I go do the dirty work, right?
Do you think a big problem is social media and the new era of getting paid to grab attention from corporations and stuff like that? Because isn't that what's causing the TikTokers and the kids to stay glued on the phone to where they can't pay attention to anything else?
It's funny because it just reminds me of like being like a little skateboarder, and like at the time, like, and being a little punk rock skateboarder, it's like you don't want to sell out, right? The corporation is evil. They're the soul suckers. And our generation now is like, they want to be noticed by them so bad. And so I think that, there is like I think a lot of mistakes and like things that we would consider not as great can be attributed to that want, that need, right? Where people are putting themselves out there in almost an uncreative way to garner attention, rather than just trying to be, the best musician or the most creative, this or that. But yeah, it's wild. Like, advancing technology does not equal advancing creativity or an advancement in,
I think it almost pulls away in a sense as well, because now, like you said, on MySpace, back to MySpace days, we did have to jump through hoops, and then we wanted to make a cool page. And I mean, I remember it's when those like, almost like those like hood or gangster like SpongeBob's and all that era, and we would have money signs on and all that stuff. But you had to go like, I forget exactly how we would do it, but I remember there was this website that you could go on, and it would show you all the designs of whatever you wanted your page to look like, and then you had to go and copy and paste and then go back in. And
I always tell people, like, you have parameters are good, right? I always use the example of like Tom and Jerry. It's a cat chasing a mouse, and they hit each other. That can only last how many seasons, right? But that concept, instead of trying to go out and expand on it, they went up, right? And so they take that idea of cat versus mouse to an extreme where it's almost, it's like amazing how many times they can hit each other and it be comical, right? And that's kind of that limitation. It's almost like being poor, right? The limitation forces you to think within your box. But in order to get out the box, you got to go up, right? And not necessarily go out, but continue to go up, right? That's so like the hood, like SpongeBob and that stuff, like that was just somebody's idea, and that was somebody's style and vibe, and now we look back on it and it's iconic, like, that's so good. But at the time, like, half the people who weren't wearing it thought that shit was cheesy or funny or silly. And
I mean, it was cheesy.
and it's so good for it now, though. Yeah. It has its own identity.
Like the what was it? The famous shirts too.
Oh, yeah.
That was huge. I remember. What about Obey?
Obey has not hit its resurgence again. It hasn't come around again.
Is it? It's they're still dropping stuff.
They
though,
still
right?
do
Are they
stuff.
still at Zoomies?
Probably.
Yeah, That's all I used to wear. I remember I loved Obey.
But it's funny because Echo was right there with them, like, same year, same stores and whatnot. And up until like a year or two ago, Echo was
Done.
not wanted. Yeah, nothing.
Echo United.
Yeah, like, I mean, they're probably still making stuff, but it wasn't wanted. Now, the market's changed. People want Affliction. They want Echo. They basically want to look like a meth head on a bike, right? Like freaking Jesse Pinkman, like hoodies and Osiris D3s and Monster T-shirt, Affliction. A little bit of grime is, I think, always been present in fashion.
Not the Osiris's.
The Osiris's, man. I wanted them too, okay? I'm not hating.
You've been dropping a lot of gems of wisdom. So let me ask you, what would you want the culture in Fresno to look like, and what should we do to make it go there?
I mean, honestly, like, just try to, like, put each other on. Like, I beg people, like, hey, tag me so I can reshare what you're doing, right? Because if I like it, then there's my audience should like it, right? And vice versa. Like, if you like my stuff, then maybe your audience will like, my stuff too. But that's hard. We're a valley of haters, right? We're crabs in a bucket trying to like just get out, but we're pulling each other down. So it's really hard, but I think like the mob mentality, right? Like what's good for Fresno is good for all of us.
Because a lot of people like to like tear Fresno down, and I can't wait to get out of this city and this and that. But like, and maybe I don't know, maybe it was just going with the crowd at the
Fresno sucks right here.
But I love Fresno, and I couldn't like imagine leaving Fresno just because like I have so many great friends here, my family's here, and there's plenty of stuff to do. Like people talk about there's nothing to do and this and that, but I'm like, I mean, you can only go clubbing like for so long, right? And yeah, you may run into but like, I mean, maybe it's just because I'm like more grown now and I'm not really in that scene anymore. But I feel like, I mean, whenever I hang out with friends or we get together, it's more about like the people, right, that I have. Because I can be in LA and have A through Z things to do, but if I have no one to do them with, right, then it really doesn't matter if not everybody's gathering at like, I love like, we all get together here most of the times, like we watch UFC fights or boxing, or we'll just get together and make a carne asada.
It's your community.
One of the reasons why the podcast was created, it was to bring everybody together.
See, that makes sense to me. Like I always tell people, like, hey, like look at Wu-Tang, right? Like they consciously put an album together with the idea of putting each other on when they go do their solo stuff, right? Or like, the X-Men. Like everybody knows the X-Men or the Avengers, but like now you're probably gonna pay attention a little bit more to like Captain America or Iron Man's adventures, right? Because you saw what they bring to the team. Now let's see what you do solo, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, like it's like I completely agree. Fresno, like I love it here. I always say like to live here is to love Fresno. To love Fresno is to die in Fresno, right? Like
yeah.
I'm putting that in the back of my bumper.
Like I don't plan on leaving here, but like also at the same time it's like it's kind of like, hey, like you can't call my little sister a dumbass, only I can. Like it's the same thing. Like you can't talk shit on Fresno if you're not trying to make something happen, or if you're not like an interesting person, because you're not helping, right? Like if all you do is go to the club and go out to eat, like you're not an interesting person. So I don't expect Fresno to be interesting to you, Versus like, hey, you're trying to make something happen. Like, okay, yeah, it sucks here, but
Maybe that's why we have so many great people, because we just find things to do. Yeah.
Again, it's those parameters, right? It's we're building up rather than trying to go to LA or the Bay Area and go outwards.
I think also maybe because in like some of those bigger cities, maybe it is a little bit more fast paced. So there's more people that may be more like minded like you. Rather, I feel like Fresno does have this kind of culture where it's just like, let's just make it, you know? And then in a lot of those other bigger cities, it's like people are trying to get ahead and they see all those things that they want and they want to get a way to get there, but there's not a big community here that is like, I feel like in some of those bigger cities, you can bump into somebody and they're like, oh, well, I do this, I run this company, or I'm involved with this and that, or, you know, we're trying to build this, and it's more things to get, you know.
I'm so happy that we're having this conversation, because I've tried in a few episodes to try to bring this up, and it just happened now.
Yeah.
So great.
The opportunities are obvious. Like the ceiling in Fresno for shit to happen is low, right? Like, you know, you can only be so big of a rapper or so big of a whatever in Fresno before you feel the need to go somewhere else because you have more room to grow, right? But I think specifically us and probably other people have realized it's not about maybe getting bigger or going up like that. It's about like, how do I think about what success looks like for me, right? And so for me, like I've always told people, I always joke like my business is not a business, it's a hobby, right? We don't make money. It's not worth my time, energy, and money to do my business. But hopefully when I'm like old and gray and retired from my bill paying job, I can do this because I love it and I'll have the clientele. And so I'm really like trying to build for retirement, to have my business be my retirement. That's what success looks like for me. Success was always like, I don't want to listen to other people, or I don't want to do what I don't want to do, right? I want to pick a job where I like to do the things that they tell me to and gives me the flexibility to do the things I want. That's what success is.
That's actually kind of close to my definition of success, because I see it more of a way of what do you actually really want to do with your life? Is it money and business? Is that is that what you really want? Or is it a way of life? Is it love for the stuff that you do? Is it that you do everything that you were supposed to do in the time that you're alive? And so for me, that's also kind of in the same direction.
Yeah, and some people think it's money, right? But even then, like, it's like you got to think a little deeper than that. Like, it's not just money, bro. Is it women?
Some people
is it like what part of the money?
It's what it does for you.
Yeah.
Right.
So some of us are stubborn, and we learn at a certain point, you know, and we have to see it firsthand. And that happened to me, where it was just like, oh man, all these things are not making me happy. So it's like, wow, it kind of had the opposite effect on me, where it was like, okay, well, it makes me happy. I'm grateful. I'm proud. But it was like, no, this is not for me. It's like my happiness is somewhere else. And since I found that out, life has been so much easier, because it's like, I don't need anything. And then that's been one of the biggest revelations for me.
Yeah, you got to figure out what you can do and what you like to do. And sometimes they'll be the same, but most of the time they'll be separate, right? You can do insurance, or you can do construction, you could do this or that, and that's cool, like, and hopefully that that pays the bills. But what else is it that like really
is the end goal, basically?
Yeah, and for some people it is like, how many construction dudes do I know or have I seen that, that's what they do during the day, but then when they go home, they're like welding like pieces of metal together to make sculptures, or like, I mean, we've all seen like little Mexican grandpas just like twiddling away in their gardens and stuff, like making stuff, because
woodworking and
because it's an internal passion. It's not like they're gonna benefit financially from any of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What would you say that fulfills you?
Honestly, like it's been really cool to see people come in and compliment the store, right? Like they feel like it's an environment that's welcoming, um, where they can find stuff that speaks to them. That's cool because I didn't have that as a kid. Like I couldn't go to a store and try to find myself. And you can't really do that at Target or Macy's, especially when you're poor. So I enjoy that. Like I pride myself in being able to do that.
You talked about being married, right?
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned it just kind of.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that at all? I have a question for that. So
Yeah.
I like to ask this question as well, and I don't know if you have kids or not too,
Yeah.
but maybe you can tap into that as well. But throughout your life, I don't know how long you've been married for, how long you've been with the same partner.
5 years.
5 years. How much do you think that's had an impact on your life from, meeting her to getting married and having kids somewhere along the line? Like, did that change your trajectory?
That's like a whole nother hour, like literally. So
If you had to give a quick version,
the nitty gritty, like I'll give you the juicy short version.
The tender.
So when I was at the record store, I was dating a gal and we were sharing the space. She did nails and I sold that. Eventually I met my now wife at the swap meet. And she saw me and recognized me. Again, I'm the kid with the I'm the dude with the wagon just pulling stuff along. And I just see this woman, like, beautiful, just, hi, like, arms open. I'm like, who the hell wants to give me a hug? Like, because it's nothing but old people and, like, dudes out there. And I'm like, oh, shoot, this is my Instagram crush. And so I'm just like, okay, well, whatever. And so after that, I was like, I think she kind of likes me. And in between that point and like within like 6 months, like we were like together. And that really just set it off for me because pretty much the end of the year is wrapping up at school. And she tells me that she's working for a new school she's working for a school that's a charter school where the teachers work from home. It's a homeschool. I'm like, that's really cool. And at the time, my daughter, who isn't mine, right, is hers, is 6. And I'm starting to think like, dang, okay, like maybe like I'm kind of serious about this girl. Like this would be a good opportunity for like me and this little one to bond. And so that's what happened. I started homeschooling our 6-year-old, and then a year later, COVID happened. And so everybody telling me this is a bad idea. Don't do homeschooling. Don't leave this wonderful school that most people or most teachers retire from. Don't leave it. They were like, that was like the best decision of my life. Like just leaving that school and going for this other school because it was a remote learning. So I was already used to it. But yeah, that's kind of the whirlwind story.
Yeah. And what about also like your guys' dynamic and like who you are, who she is? Because you met her at the Ramate. Was she selling there too, or?
No, she was just going there just to look around.
Well, was the boyfriend and girlfriend stage pretty much alike to what is your marriage now? Or did anything change?
Yeah, pretty much. Like we got married like in 6 months. Like I was
How did you know? That's my Instagram crush, and
I was just like,
I'm gonna lock with this one up.
Basically going back to like what I said, like you got to be loud about yourself. Like I already knew at that point, kind of solidly who I was. Like, and you would walk into my house and there was no hiding it. Like there's giant like stuffed animals like this big. There's Taco Bell, McDonald's signs everywhere. There's like, I've got more toys than like a family of 10. So everything's just so loud and so obnoxious. And and I'm just like, you're okay with this? Like, this is the way I am. This is the way I act. These are my intentions, and you're okay with all this stuff? Okay, cool. And so it was just a lot of like, you know, just honest communication, but like, you know, you want to think about who you want to be in the relationship. So you kind of have to act like that, right? There's no point in being shy, because on the first date, if you're shy and reserved, and you go on that second date, like, she don't know who you are, and you don't know how you're gonna fit into the relationship, right? Like, you gotta be yourself and see if that fits with them.
Yeah, I think we're an hour and a half now.
We're at an hour and a
Yeah.
half. No, sweet. Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Dude,
we're right at that moment.
That was great, man.
Yeah.
That was really good, actually.
Any final thoughts? Anything you want to say to your community or anybody watching? People of Fresno. Any announcements?
Yeah, I loved being here. It was great to have somebody want to hear what I have on my mind. Cause usually that doesn't happen. So I appreciate being here. And I just appreciate everybody's support. Moving forward with the event, moving forward with the store. And anything else that happens.
Fabio, thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah, no,
I appreciate everybody watching.
Let's keep crushing it, man. Yeah. Dude, thanks again.